All right, we are going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you all for joining us tonight. My name is Haven Spanier, and I'm the Senior Director of Programming at the UofSC Alumni Association, and it's my pleasure to welcome our host today. Before we get started, just a couple of reminders. First off, thank you to Prisma Health for making this event possible. I know we're all looking forward to it. And if you all have any questions throughout the event, you can type those either into the chat feature or into the Q&A, whatever is easiest for you. So if you aren't super familiar with Zoom, there should be a little toolbox across the bottom of your screen that you can pull up the chat and the Q&A with. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce our host today. A licensed clinical social worker and owner of Inspired Wellness, LLC Counseling and Therapy located in Irmo, South Carolina, Angela Jackson has a broad range of clinical experience. She works with individuals and groups across the lifespan in the following areas: family and relationship issues, codependency and self-esteem issues, trauma and abuse, life transitions, grief and loss, and substance use disorders. Angela is passionate about the healing work of counseling and therapy and considers it an honor to hold space for others to process through life's difficulties. Angela has a bachelor's degree in public relations and a master's degree in social work from the University of South Carolina. She now lives in Chapin with her husband and their 2 children. Thank you so much, Angela, for joining us tonight. I'm looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you so much, Haven. You can hear me okay?
You sound
good. All right, awesome. Okay, so hello, everyone. My name is Angela Jackson. Thank you so much, Haven, for that introduction. I wanted to kind of just go ahead and start off by getting some of my wiggles out. For whatever reason, I'm pretty nervous tonight. I'm hoping that this is going to be something kind of conversational, and I know that there is a chat feature. Let me first start by saying that when I was asked to present on the series, Ask the Expert, Spring into Health for Relationships, I was a little taken aback, I must admit, when I saw relationship expert. You know, I don't know about you, but when I think of expert, like when it comes to the medical field, I think of Dr. Anthony Fauci. When I think of relationship expert, I think of Drs. John and Julie Gottman, the founders and creators of the Gottman method, which is like a gold standard for relationships. When I think of relationship expert, I think of Susan Johnson, who developed emotionally focused therapy. I think of John Bowlby, whose work in attachment theory is foundational to the work of relationship counseling. So allow me please to reintroduce myself. I am Angela Jackson, like Haven said, a licensed clinical social worker, and I know some things, and some of those things that I know, I plan to share with you today. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, a little bit of housekeeping, please, if we could. I don't hear anybody, so I'm going to assume that your mics are already muted. But mute your mic, your microphone, until maybe if you decide to participate in the question and answer portion at the end of this. Also, I am told that there's a live chat that's going on. Feel free to leave a comment or ask questions in the chat. I will do my best to answer in real time. I hope I don't mess things up by looking at the chat. And in fact, let me, you know what? Nope, I can't do it. Okay, never mind. Okay, so, but there is a live chat going on. If I say anything and you have any questions or any comments, please do leave those in the chat for me, okay? And lastly, I would like to thank you in advance for registering for this event. Thank you to the University of South Carolina Alumni Association for having me. And without further ado, go Cox. All right, so it's February, right? February, this is the month of love. We've got Valentine's Day coming up. Just something for you to chew on. All you need is love, but a little chocolate now and then doesn't hurt, right? I don't know if you've got chocolate with you today. I sure wish I did, but I don't. All I have is a bottled water. But I just want to share some information with you today that I hope you find helpful as you, if you're in a relationship, you're looking for love, I hope not in all the wrong places. If you are married, if you're single, if you are getting out of a relationship. I'm hoping that something that I share with you today is going to be helpful to you. Okay, so why are you here? Sorry, okay, why are you here? So we're going to discuss today, dispel some common relationship myths. We're also going to talk about the relationship that you have with yourself. We're going to explore the stages of a relationship. We're going to talk about how you repair maybe some big hurts. And then we'll spend a little bit of time talking about some green flags or some characteristics of healthy relationships so you'll know which way you may want to go. And then at the end, we'll have time for questions and answers. I really wish I could see you all, but I can't. Sorry. All right, so let's get started with some common relationship myths. There are many myths about relationships that are false and potentially destructive. I'll give you a few moments to type in the chat, perhaps, what are some myths that you have about relationships, how they're supposed to go, how they work. Take a few moments to think about it. Okay. You might still be typing. Oh, I can see the Q&A. Let's see if I can pull it up. I cannot. Okay, we'll keep it moving. Okay. The first myth is that the perfect relationship exists. That is not true. The fact is that there is no such thing as the perfect relationship, right? I mean, relationships are only as healthy as the two people who were in them. And as a result, because like just life, no one sees eye to eye on everything at the same time. We're all flawed, imperfect people capable of being selfish and unfortunately hurting those we love. And as a result, perfection, while it may be a noble goal, it just isn't realistic. Okay. The second myth is that conflict is a sign that you're in a bad relationship. When the fact is that conflict that's healthy and safe, it can actually increase the intimacy that you experience within a relationship. Conflict is one of those things when you experience it, it can give partners an opportunity to listen and understand one another on a deeper level, so long as you're aware of the good rules of engagement, okay? So what are those rules of healthy engagement? I'm glad you asked. First thing is, before you begin, ask yourself, why do you feel upset, right? I mean, how often is it that perhaps you may start feeling upset for one reason, and then as you start to confront your partner or talk about what it is that's got you upset, that it turns into being something else, right? So you're angry at your partner because they left perhaps the mustard on the counter, or you're angry that you feel like you're doing your uneven share of the housework. And this is just one more piece of evidence, right? So take time to really think about what it is that you are feeling upset by before you start an argument. The next rule of healthy engagement in conflict is that you want to discuss one topic at a time. So don't let a conversation of you left the dishes in the sink turn into you watch too much TV, you're never available, I can't trust you. We just went from 0 to 60. I call that being a trash collector. So basically, when it's hot and you're ready to, you got your guns out and you're ready to argue, you bring up everything that's ever happened in the relationship. When that happens, discussions will get off topic real quickly, and it's more likely to get heated and less likely that you're going to solve the original problem that you're arguing about. Okay, so choose one topic, stick to it. Here's the next thing. Rules of engagement, healthy engagement, no degrading language. Discuss the issue, not the person, right? So we want to be careful not to use any put downs, swearing, name calling, any degrading language in an attempt to express the way we feel, because really what that does is that just if we are being honest about it, we are really hoping that our partner feels bad, right? Like we want to make them feel perhaps maybe what we feel or feel as bad. So doing so really though just leads to character attacks, while the original issue more often than not gets forgotten. So use good words. The next rule of healthy engagement is to express your feelings with words. Take turns speaking. I'm sorry, I went too fast. Express your feelings with words. So basically that's put your feelings into words and not actions. So good I statements like, I feel hurt when you ignore my phone calls, or I feel scared when you yell. Those I statements express how you feel while also taking responsibility for your emotions. However, just be sure that your I statement does not give you a license to ignore some of the other fair fighting rules, okay? All right, so take turns speaking. Give your full attention while your partner speaks. Avoid making any corrections or thinking about what you want to say. I mean, how true is that for most of us, that when we are engaged in an argument and the other person is talking, that we are more often than not spending time thinking about what our reply is, or how we're going to refute what they just said, or come back with that one line zinger and it's like, got you. Yeah, so let's not do that. Let's take turns and let's not cut each other off. Usually that just makes the other partner really upset, and then it's a power struggle. Another rule for healthy engagement is to not stonewall. So stonewall is basically, you know what, I'm done with this conversation, and you just leave it. So stonewalling, it's the easiest way to respond to an argument, to just shut it down, kind of retreat into your own shell, refuse to speak. You might feel better about that temporarily, but the original issue will remain unresolved and your partner will feel more upset. Like nothing gets solved when you storm out, you slam the door, you walk out. If you absolutely can't go on, then tell your partner that you need a break or a timeout, and you got to agree to come back to discuss the issue later, okay? The next rule of healthy engagement. So we're talking about conflict. So this conflict, no yelling. Sometimes we feel really strongly and really passionate about what it is that we feel. We feel that we're right, or we feel very indignant about whatever it is. And so sometimes we raise our voice, but yelling does not help anyone see your point of view. Really, it just sends the message that only your words matter. And yelling sometimes makes your partner feel intimidated and backs them into a corner, and the underlying problem still goes unresolved and perhaps even only grows worse. Take time out if things become too heated. In a perfect world, we would follow all of the rules 100% of the time, but it just doesn't work like that. If an argument starts to become personal or heated, take a time out. Agree on a time to come back and discuss the problem after everyone has kind of cooled off, which may go against what you believe to be a good rule of thumb for a relationship. That idea that we never go to bed angry, or we always kiss goodnight. Sometimes though, if we don't take a time out, things can become a little too much. Lastly, attempt to come to a compromise or some type of understanding. There isn't always a perfect answer to an argument. Sometimes we find a compromise, which is kind of like, I give a little, you give a little, and then sometimes we have to negotiate. And life isn't black and white, and it can be messy. And so do your best to come to a compromise, maybe. And if you can't come to a compromise, simply taking the time to try to understand your partner's perspective, it can help soothe any negative feelings that they have. Okay. I'm assuming you're staying with me. 6:45. Okay. So we're talking about some more myths. Some more myths are that if you have to work at communication, that it's a sign that you're not soulmates. So I don't know if you're sold on the idea of soulmates, but I don't know about you, but communication really is work. Very seldom do you have two people that come from two different backgrounds, that are raised by two different people or different households, perhaps even different cultures, and the expectation that you're going to communicate in the same way is probably just not realistic. It's something that you have to work at, and we can practice it and get better at communicating. There's always room for improvement, right? Here's another relationship myth. This one is that you always need to feel a spark. For those of you who have been in a long-term relationship for any amount of time, or are married perhaps with children and a mortgage and cars and a job, you don't always feel the spark. The fact is that we continually search for emotional excitement and novelty. We'll never really get to go the distance with someone. And I believe that we're likely to miss out on the best parts of a romantic partnership. We'll talk a little bit more about those stages of the relationship in just a few moments. But that's a myth. You don't always need to feel a spark. Okay. Here's another myth. Love is all you need. The fact is, love is not enough. You need mutual respect. You need support. You need trust. You need boundaries. You need to be seen. You need people to be there when it matters. You need space to grow and acceptance when you do grow. You need people to show their love in a way that you, I apologize for the typo, understand. So you need to have respect. You need support. You need to be able to know that your partner, that you can trust them, and that you've got good boundaries, right? So those boundaries are, we know where I end and you begin, and vice versa, and that we're not fused at the hip, but we're our separate people, and you're respectful that I am my own person. We all love and feel loved in the same way. The fact is, your partner may have a different love languages. So for those of you who are not familiar with love languages, the premise is that there are 5 ways that we give and receive love. And part of the work and of a relationship is to learn what your partner's love language is. More often than not, we tend to give the love language that we speak, and that may not be the same for your partner. So for example, well, let me list the love languages if you're not familiar with them. The book is called The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. If you've not read it, I would really encourage you to read it. It just gives a really good framework for understanding, and it makes sense. Like when you read it and you discover what your love language is, it's like, oh, that makes sense. I get it now. But the 5 love languages are, let's see, words of affirmation. And so that's basically that I receive love by you giving me words that affirm me. So I very much appreciate those notes, love letters, anything that you say to me that just fills up my bucket, fills up my tank, right? That's words of affirmation. There is quality time. Quality time is that my language of how I express my love and how I feel loved is that I expect for us to spend time together. That can be time doing household chores. It can be time doing things that are just fun, but just that we're spending time with one another. I'm in the same room with you. We're watching TV. We may not be talking. We're watching a movie, but I'm right next to you, and that just makes me feel loved that we're sharing our space. There's also physical touch. And so physical touch is probably not what you think it is. While it can include sex, it is just the desire for physical touch. So that is, I put my arm around you, I hold hands with you. I'm just touching on you all throughout the day. I walk by you, I kind of brush against your shoulder. I caress your face, just that physical touch. For someone whose love language is physical touch, hugs are super, super important. Cuddling is super important. Yeah, so it's actually pretty funny. I just thought of this, that a lot of times couples have differing love languages. And so what you will find is that you've got one partner whose love language is physical touch. And they just, they're the partner that wants to like put their leg on you or like spoon at night in the bed. And if that's not your love language, more often you're probably just trying to push them away and have your space. But it can be very helpful to identify that that is your partner's love language, and then try to express the way that they receive that love as best as you can. Okay, so I said words of affirmation, physical touch, quality time, physical touch. There is It's on the tip of my tongue. Why am I forgetting this? Words of affirmation. Is somebody trying to tell me what it is in the Q&A? Words of affirmation, physical touch. Oh my goodness. Um, this is horrible. Oh, acts of service. Acts of service. Acts of service is, there's a question. Let me try to see if I can see that. Did somebody give it to me? And then, hold on. I'm afraid if I click on it, I'm going to lose you. Okay, I better leave it alone. I'll just leave it alone. All right, I'll get Haven to help me after we're done. Acts of service. So acts of service is you do things for me. So that's like put gas in my tank, clean the car out, wash the dishes, vacuum. If acts of service is your love language, the words that's music to your partner's ears is to hear, what can I do for you? Acts of service. The other one is receiving gifts. So acts of service, receiving gifts, words of affirmation, quality time, physical touch. Okay, receiving gifts, that's 5. Receiving gifts. So the way that I give love to you and the way that I receive love perhaps is by giving gifts. And this is the person who is very, very thoughtful in their gift giving. They may even make a gift for you, and that's just the way that they express it. So one good thing to like just note is that once you are aware of what your partner's love language is, it is important for you to understand that when they do those things, even though that's not your way of receiving or giving love, that they really are trying to connect with you. So that can be helpful. It can be helpful to learn those. Okay, I think I said 5. Words of affirmation, quality touch, quality time, physical touch. This is hard to remember these while we're, you know what, we'll just keep going. Y'all, I said them all. Acts of service. Oh my goodness. Bear with me. Okay, all right, here's another myth. Getting married or having a baby will fix all of your relationship issues. Okay, so the fact is, marriage and children are never band-aids. In fact, you know, marriage is tough, right? Because that's a commitment that you make. And children, that adds another mix. You know, children are born into the world and they literally can do nothing for themselves. And so if you are not making your relationship a priority, a child comes into the mix and they take up all of the time. They take up all of your time and attention. So if you're thinking that I'm going to get married and somehow suddenly all of my problems are going to go away, that's not going to happen for you. Any issues that you experience before marriage are likely going to be issues after you're married, okay? In addition, a baby doesn't fix things. In fact, a baby probably even complicates things. There's, you know, when babies are young and you're sleep deprived, sometimes resentment can creep into the relationship if only one person is really taking care of the baby, or if most of that falls on one partner versus the other. So yeah, that's definitely a relationship myth. Getting married, having a baby does not fix your relationship issues. Okay, I hope you don't mind my language here, but if y'all need therapy, it's already too late. Sometimes that may be a myth that you have about relationships, that if we're at the stage where we're going to therapy or counseling, that it's too late for us. That's not true. It's never too late. Most partnerships and marriages, especially after a baby arrives, people stop dating one another and they stop making romance, great sex, fun, adventure. They stop making all of that a priority. Relationships do have a tendency to become endless to-do list, right? You go pick the baby up, you pick our son up from school, you go to this play, you go to that play, you go to this practice. It can be a never-ending to-do list, and the conversations really do become limited to what errand are you running, what is it that you're doing, really like household tasks. And so you do really need to intentionally make or keep those parts of your relationship a priority. Therapy can be a really, really great way to do that because it offers you the space to focus on the relationship and also to talk about some of those things perhaps that make it heated when you're together. It's just always a really good idea. So I encourage everyone, if you've not been in counseling or therapy before, to give it a shot. Okay, another relationship myth, 655, your partner can fulfill all of your needs. They can't, and they really shouldn't. sometimes there is a belief that when we get partnered, whether we get into a relationship, we become married, that relationship just becomes our end all and our end all be all. And that's a lot of weight to put on your partner. They can't fulfill all of your needs. They weren't meant to. Think about it this way: before you met your partner, however old you were before you guys got together, that you existed without any knowledge of their existence. So to now place all of your needs being met by this one person is really setting yourself up for disappointment, because it just can't happen. Okay. So instead of having a belief perhaps, or there being that myth that you think that your relationship is going to be your end all be all, one of the things that's really important that is for you to cultivate a relationship with yourself. Okay. So partners aren't designed to complete us, because we're already complete and whole in our very beings. Looking around for the mythical person who will fix you, or perhaps you think, I've got a career now, I am at this point in my life where I've done all of these things, I've checked all of the boxes, and the only thing that's missing now is my partner, is really setting yourself up for a lot of disappointment, perhaps, especially if your goal is that they're going to somehow complete you. Okay, so realize and embrace your wholeness just as you are. And that's not to say that a good partner won't help fill in the gaps. There can absolutely be healing nature in a committed, loving relationship, but it's only part of the work that you have to individually do yourself. Okay. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about how do you exactly how do you develop a relationship with yourself. Okay. One of the ways is that you want to just be aware and cultivate some awareness and some intentions about maybe some goals in your life. Think about like where you are right now, and what is it that you want to achieve? Do you want to keep moving toward a goal with a relationship with yourself? Understanding what that entails over time and over the years. You want to still plan like for short-term or middle, long-term goals. In cultivating that relationship with yourself, you want to realize and really consider what your motivations are for moving through life, knowing that a partner can add value to your life, but they can't complete your life, if that makes any sense. Be okay with change as you are developing and cultivating a relationship with yourself. Adopt an attitude maybe of curiosity and acceptance, and learn how to be flexible. Another way that you can cultivate a relationship with yourself is to prioritize just some basic self-care, right? So sleep, nutrition, activity, rest, recreation, all of those are habits, or those habits are foundational to sustaining self-care. When you're able to take care of yourself, it's kind of like that idea of you can't give what you don't have. So if there are things that you need to work on as far as your self-esteem, as far as your sense of like confidence, those are things that it could be really helpful to your relationship later when that happens, to be more secure in yourself, right? Also, be kind to yourself. It doesn't mean letting yourself off the hook or not taking responsibility for things, but it does mean like just coming to a realistic appraisal of yourself without excessive criticism or blame. Sometimes what happens is that when we're not solid in self, we look to our relationships for validation. We look for our relationships to make us feel good about ourselves, when really that comes from within. Okay. Some other things: find some people who fit the goals, fit some of your personal goals. You don't want to lose your friendships. You want to still have friends and family that are important to you, your own interests that you want to develop, things that you enjoy, hobbies. All of those things are really important, because when a relationship does come, when you find that relationship and find the partner that you wish to settle down with or just spend time with, then you can share those things with them at the time. Okay, so now let's explore maybe the stages of a relationship. Let's see, I had some notes. Okay. All right. So stages of a relationship. There are levels to this. First phase, according to Gottman, there's limerence. Level one, there's that attraction and romance, right? So this is that I just love everything about you, that I love the way you look, I love the way you smell. It really is kind of like that infatuation stage, right? For any of you who've experienced that in relationships, like there's just the newness, the novelty of it all. Your partner has no wrongs, they have no bad habits, they do everything right. That's what happens in phase one. There's strong attraction. There's some romance there. You are getting to learn about them. You may be fascinated by who they are. This is a new person that you've never met before. And so you just really get caught up in that whole curiosity, interest, and again, like that infatuation. So a lot of attraction, physical attraction, things might be hot and heavy. Doesn't really go too deep because you've got your rose-colored glasses on and you're not really looking for anything that's going to turn you away. Okay. This stage, this phase one, this stage level one, it kind of lasts for about 3 to 4 months, depending on who you are and your maturity, experiences, your understanding of self. Towards the end of the stage, though, hopefully, if you found the right person, you are going to go to the next stage. Going slowly is important as well. You want to make sure that you get to know this person for who they are and allow them to let their guards down, so that way you can really see who they are. Okay, so that's phase one. Puppy love, I guess is what we'll call it. All right, phase two, levels 2 and 3. Okay, here's where reality sets in and you are annoyed by the way they chew. You realize that they have some really quirky habits, or you find some stuff that's just mildly irritating about them to you. Perhaps you've taken off the rose-colored glasses and you're a little disappointed maybe. This is that phase where a partner will say a word wrong. I know that sounds really shallow, but if there are any women that are on here, that can be a turnoff. And so this is that stage where they are letting their guards down a little bit, and perhaps you may be disappointed in what they show you, you know? Okay. But if you can get through that stage and figure out if this is a person that you would want to spend your time with, oh, my little video is not working. Then you get to where there's a building phase, and that's levels 4 and 5, where it's marked by stability and commitment, right? So you work through some of your issues. Maybe you've had some arguments. Maybe you have had that conflict and have been able to resolve that in a healthy way to where you decide, you know what, this person isn't all that bad. Like I can manage these things because the sum of those parts, I have come to enjoy, or I've come to love, and this is my person. So this is kind of like that phase where if you can get through the conflict, that you can get to a place of stability and commitment. Okay, so what happens though if a relationship takes a turn for the worse and you are either trying to figure out perhaps is this the person that I need to be with? You know, sometimes, again, like I said, that we are imperfect people and we make mistakes, sometimes willingly, sometimes unwillingly or unknowingly, and we at some point hurt our partners in the relationship, even if that's not what we desire to do, but it happens. You know, we all make mistakes. And so how do you repair those big hurts? If trust is broken in a relationship, and a lot of behaviors are related to there being a break in trust, whether that's a big break or a really big, or I'm sorry, a minor break, like I, you know, said that I was going to be there for you in your time of need and I wasn't, and you feel hurt by that. And then there are some betrayals, some hurts that are really big, like I've cheated on you, I've betrayed your trust. And so the only way really though to restore trust in a relationship is with reliable behavior over time. Also includes making good apologies. You know, we take for granted that I think as kids, we grow up with, if you do something to somebody, then you're told by an adult to say I'm sorry, but we don't know that what we're sorry for, and our apologies sometimes are haphazard and they're incomplete. And if we were able to make really good apologies, it could be very helpful in us repairing some of those hurts and restoring the relationship. Growth, love, and reconciliation, though, they're not linear processes. Like those are things that you may feeling like you're going up, you're coming back, and then something happens and you're down again. And that's to be expected. So repairing big hurts, like it can be done. You may even decide that this is just too much to come back from, and that's okay too. Sometimes relationships do end. Yeah, sometimes they do. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about unhealthy relationships. In unhealthy relationships, you're going to have these things. These things are going to exist. There's going to be a lack of communication, some dishonesty, disrespect, jealousy, manipulation, criticism, isolation, constant fighting, controlling behavior. I want to say that it goes without saying that any abuse would indicate an unhealthy relationship, but sometimes we aren't able to call things what they are. So physical abuse, and sometimes we know what that is. We can see that, right? Sexual, mental, or emotional abuse, sometimes we don't see that. And so it can be difficult for us to identify that if it exists in the relationship. If you've got one or two, well, except for the bottom, if you've got one before that, then the relationship may just be unhealthy. If you've got many of those, then the relationship just might be toxic. I do want to take a moment, though, to be a little bit more serious and talk about if you or someone you know is in an unhealthy relationship, it can feel very isolating. And that you may feel shame about it. You may not want to share with anybody. Someone may not know. And I want you to know that there are resources for you that are available. So I'm going to leave this slide up just a little bit in the event that someone may want to have jot down these numbers. There's the National Domestic Violence Hotline. There's National Sexual Assault Hotline. I apologize for the typo. And there's the South Carolina Coalition Against Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault. Those numbers are listed. I'll also make myself available if you have any questions, or if you have questions about perhaps a relationship that you're in and you rather talk privately. I will make myself available for that after we're done. Okay. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what to avoid in relationships. Sometimes that can be obvious, what we want to avoid, but can we spot what to seek out in relationships? We are going to call these green flags, and identifying the green flags of a relationship. In healthy relationships, partners, they feel safe with each other and respect each other's differences. They realize when they're wrong and they're not afraid to say, I'm sorry. We talked about that apology being really important. They share their dreams, feel their fears, concerns with each other, and share other important information. It's that idea of, I'm going to deepen my intimacy. I'm going to let you see who I really am, the good, the bad, and the ugly. In healthy relationships, partners, they share decisions and responsibilities and discuss roles to make sure that they're fair and equal. They treat each other like they want to be treated. The golden rule never goes out of style. They listen to each other. They accept each other's opinions, friends, and interests. They maintain friendships outside of the relationship, and they're not dependent upon each other for an identity. We're talking about healthy relationships, what that looks like, and what partners do in healthy relationships. They laugh, they have fun, as the relationship is enjoyable for both partners in healthy relationships. Okay, so it is 7:10. I finished that a lot faster than I thought I was going to. I can't see the chat. I don't know if Haven is still on. I did realize that I skipped over let me go back to the unhealthy relationships real quick, because I wanted to talk about these in detail. So that lack of communication, what that looks like, I forgot to add that. So let me just do that, please. What that looks like is that you're unable to talk about difficult topics. There's a lot of misunderstandings that never get worked out. There are arguments more often than there are discussions. Dishonesty, continual repeated dishonesty, it's not a good foundation for any relationship. Disrespect, like we talked about in the rules of engagement for conflict, healthy conflict, that disrespect includes name calling, breaking boundaries, constantly questioning and criticizing the other person's choices and decisions. There's jealousy. It becomes unhealthy when it's constant or excessive and becomes about one partner obsessing and possessing the other partner. Manipulation, it can take many forms, like mind games, convincing one partner to ignore their wants, desires, needs, and using a lot of guilt to manipulate them. Criticism, that takes a form of like just tearing each other down. It could be also a form of emotional abuse. Isolation is often a tactic that's used by abusers to make victims or survivors dependent on them by cutting off their ties to support networks, thus increasing their power and control in the relationship. There can be constant fighting. And again, that controlling behavior that's really all about that power and control. So I just wanted to add that. All right, so we talked about green flags. Are y'all in healthy relationships? If you're in a relationship in what we've talked about today, and you are looking at some of these and thinking, okay, so those are some goals. Like, that's not a bad thing. Like, sometimes, more often than not, we don't know what we don't know. And we all have, my belief is that we all have the opportunity to, once we learn some new information, that we have a choice then if we would like to incorporate that and practice with it. And a lot of these things sometimes take practice. So, okay. If you want to get in touch with me, again, my name is Angela Jackson. I am in private practice, Inspired Wellness in Irmo. My email address is listed there. My website is listed there. My phone number is 803-575-0579. I am on Instagram. I am on Facebook. I thank you all so much for allowing me to share this time. I don't take it for granted. You could have been anywhere tonight and you decided to log in. I hope that there was something that I've shared that was helpful. Okay, so now I'll ask any questions. I see it there, Haven. I don't know if you're on, but I can't, it won't let me.
Yes, I'm here. I can read some of them to you.
Thank you. Okay.
So the first one is, how do you identify mental or emotional abuse?
Okay, so that mental and emotional abuse piece, some of the characteristics that we talked about are, if you have an overall feeling, I guess maybe what can be helpful is the intention behind it. So any name calling, any put downs, any behaviors that are meant to degrade and demean you. So that's, you're stupid, you don't deserve anybody, no one's ever going to love you. Like, those things, the intention behind that is to control you and to get you to feel so bad about yourself that you may feel that you can't do any better. Those are some things I would look out for. I would also look out for, again, that controlling behavior, because and sometimes we aren't quick to catch that, because what happens is we think, or sometimes we're socialized into thinking that, well, my partner is just wanting me to make sure that I'm safe. So sometimes it kind of comes into the relationship under the guise of, well, they're just looking out for my best interest, but then it turns into, okay, well, who are you talking to over the phone? There's not a lot of privacy. There's that undercurrent of distrust in the relationship, that you're always suspected to do something bad, or and also a feeling that you have that you're walking on eggshells, that your partner is very volatile. Like they one day they're fine, and then the next day you just don't know what to expect. And so you just try to keep yourself kind of neatly in a box, so to not do anything, because it can be really explosive. Like, all of those things I would say there are a lot of indicators that that relationship is abusive mentally.
Thank you. So the next question, this attendee says, what does it mean if you and your potential partner are not on the same stage? For example, you're ready to continue, but your partner is not.
Ooh, okay. So I would be curious to know, when you say your partner is ready to continue, but you're not, is this after like a break, or is this kind of like we're at the fork in the road and we're deciding, like, I want to go forward, like I perhaps want to, I'm just looking for some clarification.
While we're waiting on them to clarify, I can
Okay.
do the next question.
Okay.
So the next one is, can you say more about focusing on growth?
I believe I mentioned growth within self first. Um, and then being able to continue to grow. I'm not sure if I said that, but being able to continue to grow as a couple or as a partnership. Was the question specifically for individual growth, or, like, for example, think of it this way: if you meet your partner and you are 22 years old, and now you're 40. So you're not the same person. Most people aren't not the same person at 22 that they are 40. One of the tricky things about partnerships is that not only are you growing individually and developing into your person in all that entails, whether that's the things that you're working on individually, some of your individual goals, your personal goals for development, whether that's like getting a better handle of my emotional control, or me working on, the fact that I procrastinate a lot, like whatever that is for you personally, it can be tricky to also then come alongside a partner as they do the same thing. So that's one of the things that's really important, is to give each other space to grow individually, but then still be intentional about, okay, well, how are we going to share now our shared space? That can be tricky, but it can be done. It can be done. I think that answers the question. You'll let me know if that's not what we're talking about.
Thank you.
Mhm.
The next question is, how can therapy help with healthy relationships?
Oh, so helpful. Because so sometimes what happens for a lot of couples is that you can't see the forest for the trees, right? I mean, like, you're in your head all the time. Wherever you go, there you are. Everything from your perspective, I won't say it's impossible. It can be difficult to be objective about how you feel, because your feelings belong to you and you may be very passionate about them. A third party, a counselor or a therapist, they're not tied to your feeling like you are. So for example, you come into the office and you talk about, and you share how exasperated you are that we're having the same conversation over and over again and they don't listen, or I feel like I'm not being listened to. And there's a lot of that feeling that's tied to that. Well, a counselor or a therapist isn't in the mix of that. They're not in the 3, 4, 5, 10, 12 years, however long that is occurring. And so they're able to be a little bit more objective to say, oh, well, it sounds like what you're trying to express to your partner is this. I mean, it can offer you a safe space to be able to have a guide when you're talking about things that typically, if it's just you and your partner behind closed doors, that it's difficult for you to talk about, just because those emotions do get really, really, you get really impassioned, and it can be just difficult. And so a therapist can help you navigate and help you communicate in healthy ways, to where the emotions don't overtake everything, and then the issue isn't resolved, or at least in some way.
All right, thank you. And we have some clarification on the question about if you are ready, but your partner isn't. So this participant means that if you're first meeting and you're starting a new relationship.
Uh-huh. Oh, okay. Well, okay. So we can't make people do anything. And so we can only take responsibility for how we feel and what we bring to a relationship. So I would be curious and perhaps maybe cautious of to what extent someone is willing to engage in a relationship when the other partner isn't on the same page. I just imagine, and I mean, that's really, really vague. And there could be, there are a couple of different scenarios that I'm just thinking of that could be happening, but I don't know if, I don't know how helpful it is to a person to have an expectation or an expectation that they'll eventually come around. Like, you know, while we can always be hopeful about relationships that they take off, like, here I am, I think this person's really cool, I think this could be the one. We can be hopeful, but we also have to be realistic, and stay in reality. And so what's the reality of the situation? What are the facts of the situation? The facts of the situation sound like I am ready to move the relationship forward and my partner perhaps is not, and have a discussion about that.
Great, thank you. The next one is, when you're starting to online date, what are positive signs you should look for to know if a friendship or deeper relationship is developing or has potential?
So, you know, online dating, that's the new thing now, right? I mean, well, not new thing, but I mean, that's just another way that we are meeting people and connecting with others. I would say that it is still the same, as in person. When you get a chance to meet someone in person, that you want to feel as though there is a deepening of a relationship where you're sharing more than superficial things, right? So we're not just talking about the weather. We're not just talking about maybe what we did during the day, but perhaps we are being a little bit more intimate in what we're sharing, and opening ourselves up and being vulnerable. Um, when that happens, that can be an indicator that the relationship perhaps is deepening. I will say that you may want to, I don't know how you would want to verify whether we see each other in person or maybe do a FaceTime, just so, in the age of catfishing and people being online where they represent one thing and may not be who they are, or they may be someone all different together. So there may be some other ways that you're able to at least verify that you are talking to someone before that relationship deepens. But typically, like, when those conversations start to go deeper, that's a good indication that things might be moving out of that superficial range.
Wonderful, thank you. So the next question, what if one person is growing and the other person is not growing? What do you do?
That's hard. So I make it my business to not give advice, because I am not the expert on your life specifically. So having said that, I would be curious to know, well, what does that mean for you? Is that something, like, what do you do with that? Is that something that you're wanting to kind of wait that they're going to, kind of like similar to the other question, are you wanting to just stick around and see if they're going to come around? Again, that notion of, we can be hopeful that people change, but we have to be very careful that we are not, like, wanting that for them more than what they wanted for themselves, right? Sometimes and you know what, now that I'm thinking about it, that very well could have been another myth of relationships, is that we somehow can get people to change, and we can get our partners to love us and value us and treasure us, and that we may have a little bit of influence, maybe, but we can't make people do anything. And so I would just be cautious as to, well, if that doesn't work, if what it is that you're wanting to happen doesn't happen, then what do you do? And help someone focus on what they're able to control within themselves, and really invest in themselves, as opposed to waiting for someone else to do something that they may or may not do.
So this may be building on that question, but the next one is, how do you get your partner to go to therapy if they don't want to go?
Okay. So how do you get them to go? Well, you could, again, can't make anybody do anything. So long as you're clear that you can suggest and you can say, hey, I really want to do this. It would mean a lot for me to have you come with me. I think this could be helpful. And then, out of respect, perhaps, for you, they may go. But really, really be mindful that you really have to watch that expectation. Because counseling, when one partner is more in than the other, it can be frustrating for the partner who really wants to get you there. And but that's not to say that a skilled therapist or counselor isn't able to perhaps uncover and find maybe what the motivation is that the other partner has for being there. So maybe you are able to get them to come to the first session. And so a counselor or therapist would be able to see what their buy-in is. And I hate to say buy-in, but how motivated they are to be in therapy as well.
Great tip. Okay, the next one. This person is wondering, what are your recommendations if all of the basics are there for their relationship, but they're feeling stagnant or stuck in a rut?
Now I would, okay. So they're feeling stuck in the rut. I honestly, I would want to ask a lot more questions about that. Like, what does that mean? Like, is stuck in a rut like the relationship isn't progressing, stuck in a rut that they feel a certain way in the relationship? Like, I would want to know if their partner shares that. Like, have they communicated that? Have they explored that? Like, I would have a whole lot more questions about that.
While we're waiting on some clarification, I'll move to the next one. Okay. What are some self-care activities that couples can engage in to strengthen their relationship?
Yeah, good question. Anything that you can do together, you can get creative, take a class together, do something that's fun, especially once the relationship gets is established and you're in kind of like that stabilization phase, to do something because there's not that novelty anymore, right? Like, you know, this person, y'all might even be best friends now, or the relationship is really close and there's a lot of shared intimacy. So doing something that you can do together is always helpful in just being intentional about coming together and sharing space and time. It's helpful if you have shared interests before the relationship happens. It can be tricky developing those, but it's not impossible, especially if the goal and the intention is to have those things that you do together. So I would say anything is game, anything that you agree that you want to engage in, that you are doing willingly, I think is a good thing with your partner and wanting them there.
All right, this next one is a fun one. If you'd like to answer, what is your love language?
My love language, if you couldn't tell, well, you know what? I'm curious. Let me see if anybody can guess what my love language is. Can I ask that, Haven? Can somebody put in the chat? What do they think?
Sure. If you all want to put in the chat your guesses, and while we're waiting on that, we can see the next question. What is your opinion on serious relationships at a younger age, early to mid 20s, versus waiting until you're older and a bit more established?
Oh, that's a good question. Ooh, goodness. Okay. So this is going to be my opinion. Our brains don't fully develop until we are about 25. So think about the implications of that. If we are in a relationship and we marry at 20, 21, 22, like that can be early. I'm being very careful with my word choice because I don't want to sound judgmental about that. There are many relationships that start out really young and that they're still going strong. Mine is actually one of them, a little bit of self-disclosure. However, think about how you change and how you grow. And, you know, in your 20s, it's time for traditionally for you to like establish a career perhaps, or figure out like, okay, you're no longer in school. What are you doing, you know? And so it really is an opportunity for you to have a good solid sense of self. It can be tricky sometimes when you partner at that age because you're sharing that sense of self. And again, like you're not, when you're 20, in your early 20s, you're not the same person you are in your 40s. And so just realizing and going into the relationship, knowing that you are going to change, things are going to change, your partner is going to change, and being open and flexible and allowing that space for that change to happen. If that's something that it's encouraged and supported, it can be a great thing.
All right, thank you for that. We have several guesses for your love language. So it looks like a few votes for acts of service, a few for words of affirmation, and then one for quality time.
Look at there. It's actually words of affirmation. I figured maybe you would have guessed that because even though I can't see you all, I just have been talking a lot. So I thought maybe you would. Yeah. So it's words of affirmation followed by quality time. And I think acts of service is next. So,
All right, looks like this might be the last question unless anyone has some last minute questions. But someone's wondering if you take virtual appointments.
I do. Yes, I do telehealth services. I do in-person therapy in Irmo. If you're in the Irmo area, I do telehealth sessions for anybody that's in South Carolina, and you would just need to reach out to me. But I do both. Yes.
All right, well, it looks like we got through all of the questions. There were lots of fantastic questions
They
tonight.
were. Thank you.
I hope that this session was beneficial for everyone. I know I learned a lot. It looks like you guys did as well. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Angela, for spending your
Thank you.
evening. Very
Thank you.
beneficial information that we can all utilize.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, everyone, have a wonderful evening.